Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Listen Up, the show that really covers all the bases. We do everything from inspirational to motivational to leadership, and many times we go out even on the educational route, like our last episode. Today we're doing something special, and we're talking to Mr. Grant Raney. Grant's the CEO of the Environmental Impact Solutions, and he's also the managing partner and VP of Land at Impact Energy Partners here in Oklahoma City. We've known Grant for quite a while, and what they're doing at Impact and the new Impact Solutions, the environmental side, is pretty interesting and something that I think you'll definitely take a lot of interest in today. So, as you know, with this series and with what we're doing here, we always like to try to find people that are kind of forging new paths and kind of making something their own. And definitely Grant and his family and the rest of the team at Impact has definitely taken that on and run with it just full steam. So without further ado, let's meet Grant. Let's kind of talk about, and first thing, Grant, I guess, let's just talk a little bit about your past of how you really got into the energy industry. And I would say it's probably your dad was the biggest influence on that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've met Mickey. He's just a
old
guy. School oil and gas. He put himself through college, working on roughnecking, working on drilling rigs, and then got out of college and worked for some of the companies before kind of venturing out on his own. And so I grew up, being around the industry. Dad come home, he'd have oil on his pants and say, "What does that smell like, kids?" And it smells like money, right? And Christmases and everything, kind of like, oil prices are up. Christmas is very good, and when oil prices were down, we always had a good Christmas, but much different than when oil prices. So I got to see the ups and downs of the industry, and so I knew I wanted to get in the industry, but I wasn't. Maybe math wasn't my thing, like Dad's a petroleum engineer, and so we learned about the energy management program at OU. And so I went through the energy management program, and just an excellent program over there. And when I graduated, I took a position at Chesapeake Energy, which is where I met you. You do the comedy skits over at Chesapeake, kind of a little celebrity.
Hey, you got to keep with the cameras and keep with the lights. It's bread and butter over here.
And so, the whole goal was, my dad and I knew we wanted to team up together, but I really didn't have anything to bring to the table. Dad had his deal, and I needed to learn more. So
did he have a company of his
own at that point? He had his own company,
okay.
But the goal was never to move into a family company. The goal was to start something from scratch, something together that we could jointly own.
Right.
And so in 2015, I'd been there at Chesapeake about 5 years, and was really starting to get the itch to leave, to do something on my own, do something with Dad. Wasn't quite sure. But I was busy. I was working the Utica, which was one of the hottest plays at Chesapeake. And I remember talking to a mentor of mine in 2015. I said, "I think I'm ready to go, but I'm not sure yet. I'm pretty busy at Chesapeake." And I said, either I'm going to find something, a good opportunity, or I'm going to get let go, which is going to be crazy because I'm really busy. Well, October 2015 hits. I say fortunately, because it wasn't unfortunate. Fortunately, I was one of 700 people that got a nice compensation package to leave.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people in one day. 700. I mean, it affected. I know not everybody maybe was as fortunate or had a plan in mind, but as soon as that happened, I knew this is the moment we got to do something. So instead of launching right into the company, my wife and I loaded up the Dodge Charger. We had an old Dodge Charger. And we traveled west. We hit every state west of Oklahoma, just living out of a Dodge Charger with our little dog. And we were on the road for about a month, and just kind of camping at KOAs and getting a hotel every few days. We needed a shower. And as I'm driving, I'm thinking a lot about what's the next step. What does it look like to start a company? What is the name of the company going to be? You got to start with the name. Well, I would say that my family, and myself included, my wife, we try to be mission oriented, and we try to give back to the community through a local organization. We're a part of City Center and some different Youth for Christ, some of those communities. And so we wanted to come up with a name, or I did, and that would have more than just something oil and gas. And so we came up with the name Impact Energy Partners, and I think our tagline's making an impact in people's lives through energy. And so, we got the name, but now we got to get assets under management.
We should have named this podcast Impact Energy, impacting people through energy. Like that makes sense. Pay me, or I'll pay you a couple royalties, and let us switch this over.
Well, I think our industry in general. You can walk or drive around Oklahoma City, and a lot of the things we have today are because oil and gas families gave back to the community.
100%.
Look at Class and Curve, look at the zoo, the Kirkpatrick family. So many of these oil and gas families. And so I think it's even just if you grew up in the industry, it's in your bones to give back. And so when we were thinking about the name, we wanted to, have that kind of those core values.
For sure.
And so we had the name, we incorporated LLC. And I was reading all these articles, and I was at Chesapeake about all these people raising money. And you think, well, it's just easy. And that's not the case. I blew through all my savings because, again, Dad and I were 50-50 partners. He wasn't cutting me a check. And thankfully, I actually did some land work for some of the broker crews around town. I was doing some contracting in the day and, doing some stuff at night. And we flipped a few leases here and there, but really nothing took off for about 2 years, and it kind of gets frustrating. And
was it getting to kind of a frantic point of where you were starting to a little bit more nervous? Might have to sell the Challenger or the Charger.
It really was. I'd kind of made told my wife, hey, okay, if we get down to this point in our savings, then I can think about getting a job. And we got to that point, and I thought, I don't really want to do that yet. We're close. I can feel it. And it was in, I think, 2000, kind of the end of 2000, or around 2017 that we did a deal with a local private equity group.
Nice.
And Mickey had a vision on getting ahead of a play, and me and another guy leased up about 1,000 acres and flipped it rather quickly, and basically got us through that year.
Fantastic.
And that was great because we saw the momentum, but that still wasn't our goal to lease flip, because lease flipping every single day you got to get up.
Oh yeah.
And it's very risky. It's so we were still looking for that next operated package, and the end of 2018 is when we bought our first one up in the Miss Lime of all places. Yeah. And then in 2019 we did 3 acquisitions, and so we were able to add to the team, and so it was no longer just me and my dad doing everything, but we were able to add a staff and really incorporate our goals, which is impacting lives through energy. We hired an individual that had got let go from Chesapeake, I think in 2018.
Nice.
And another good friend of ours that's managing our lease records, and that had been without a job. So we've been able to create some jobs out of it. And so
isn't that cool?
It's awesome. It's really cool to be able to do that and know that, hey, we're able to provide for these families, and just the faith aspect of just, it's you just see God work in an amazing way, because here we are busting it, but it was like at the right moment. There was a time when I was like, I don't think this is going to work out, and a door would open,
and it worked.
It's been a fun but very challenging experience.
I go back to what you said on working at Chesapeake and the contacts that we made there, and us knowing each other, and you start looking at first off the 2 or 3 things that you were talking about, of first seeing how much some of these leaders that were so prevalent here in Oklahoma City, the Aubrey McClendons, the Harold Hams, the Kirkpatricks, all the people that put so much money out there because they believed in the city. Yeah. And then they would also put so much money. The reason you were hired at Chesapeake, I hope the reason that I was hired at Chesapeake was because they were trying to gather together some very strong, incredible talent to be able to teach them, this new young generation, to care about the oil and gas industry, and hopefully turn them into people like those that we mentioned, of people that care about it, love it, care about each other, and want to give back. And I think that means so much in the fact of whenever there are layoffs and there are downsizing of 7,000 or 700 people, and you see different rounds, and anytime that happens, your phone is gonna bing because of a text message of somebody that has been a good friend of yours, or somebody that has been affected by this. And to be in a position like you guys are, to where you could open your doors and say, hey, we know you were good, at your last job. We already know the character that you are. We're bringing you in. That's good for the city. That's good for the industry, and that's pretty commendable. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah,
that's
great.
So when you guys were putting this together and the doors are opening at the right time, we've got the 2 or 3 different acquisitions that you've got and everything. As we're getting up, now we're getting 2019-ish, and all of a sudden, pandemic happens. Yeah. So in our company, we talk to companies of all sizes and everything, and we hear the struggles, the trials and the tribulations that they went through, or the trials that they went through and the tribulation of getting out of it on the other side. For a company the size of Impact, what was it like going through that?
We have investors with our company, and we're sending out our 2021 guidance, and I was looking at our 2020 letter, and man, we thought it would be a challenging year, but definitely not what it was.
Right.
And we're sitting there watching oil go negative, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Like everybody.
Right.
But the great thing about being a small independent is we can pivot quickly.
Yeah.
And we're not limited. We can make decisions quickly. And so we did a couple of things. We literally started buying up physical oil, and we have all these pad sites on our locations, and we filled up I think it was like 6,000 barrels of oil that we purchased from local operators and an oil trading company. Yeah, we set it on I think it was like 11 frack tanks. And so I think that we did a drone footage. I think it's on my LinkedIn. Yeah, it's on my LinkedIn. Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, and so because one of the guys was joking, he was like, "Hey, what if we filled up our swimming pools with oil?" Kind of a joke in the office, and I thought, wait a minute, we have all this property, and we can get frack tanks because nobody's drilling, nobody's completing wells, so you could get them for cheaper.
Right.
So we called up a few groups, and we got a good rate, and we made some money on it. Not a lot, but we made money. And then the good thing about operating properties is, Mickey's just a phenomenal operational guy. Mm-hmm. And so he called the field team in and got with their supervisor up there, and they really put a good plan in to cut costs, get rid of the marginal productions. We contacted some of our vendors and said, hey, let's work together on this, and they were really responsive. And I think we really only had 1 or 2 months in the red. Now, obviously, our total cash flow suffered like everybody.
Right.
We were down tremendous through 2020, and the problem was, but we were able to shut in wells. So obviously, the reserves are still in the ground, but
it's good.
Definitely a very challenging year. I like to buy assets, and there's just not a lot of deal flow.
Yeah.
You kind of start to think, am I not doing my job? Everybody kind of questions, am I not adding anything? And you really just have to look back. It was just such a challenging year that we did what we could, and we cut what we could, and I think now we're probably stronger going into 2021 because of that.
That's great. And that kind of leads into the next thing that I was going to ask you of. We're not completely out of the woods yet, but it feels so much better now than it did. Like I feel so much more optimistic about things. What was something throughout that experience? Was there anything that you see as a positive of? I always talk to people about pandemic, and we see the negative oil prices, and we see all of these different things. We see downsizing, we see all these different just rough things for companies. What was a positive that you saw throughout there for Impact?
I think the positive was knowing that, and Mickey's seen a lot of downturns, but this was probably one of the worst that I've seen.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think the fact that knowing that our company was in a position to still keep the doors open, to not lay anybody off, and to still have some capital to go buy things for 2021, that definitely was a positive. We don't have a lot of debt. Mickey and I are always battling how much, he hates debt. I don't mind debt. And so we found a way to work through, but definitely made me realize, if we had bought something in 2019 and leveraged up going into 2020, like some companies I know in town did, I look back at that and I'm glad we didn't buy anything into 2019.
Right.
And so that was definitely fortunate that we kind of went in with the existing assets that we had purchased from, early 2019. We were getting cash flowing, and then not to have a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And I think that, the oil and gas industry, that's great. It juices those returns, but it's a volatile commodity. And I think just knowing that, hey, the next one we do, let's be conscious of that, and buy what we can and sell off what we can't.
For sure. For sure. And the scary thing for me. So I started in 2005-ish.
Yeah.
We were right around the same time, and so we saw what was it, 2000. When was the 2008-ish was that whenever things kind of slumped off, and as we saw that kind of drop, I was just like, man, this has been so fun. The oil and gas industry, so fun.
Right.
This is the first time I'm not having awesome time.
Yeah.
And so then people kind of reined it in, and they're like, okay, we've got a little bit more financial clarity, and we've got this. Well, now we have 2019, 2020, and nobody could have really anticipated anything like that. And so I've heard from so many different companies where they're like, we are running now on such an efficient day-to-day of, we know the staff size that we need, we know the programs we have to work with, we need the processes. And so what I always see as such a good positive is so many of these companies, large and small, are really finding a much more equilibrium balance of how they're able to come out of this. And so I feel like, should something happen again, in the next few years, I feel like people are a little bit better positioned. I don't know that, but I feel like that's kind of the mindset that I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think definitely what you've seen is a correction in our industry.
Yeah.
I grew up in this industry. I love this industry. I mean, you've been in it a long time. You love it. And for a while we would have, they were roofers or school teachers, whatever, and great, but they would jump in the industry and they didn't really. I think now we're down to really the core people of our industry,
right?
Which is what I like. But then, you had influx of private equity, and you had, over drilling, and I think, we're down to the core. I think the next 5 years, I know Robert Hefner touched on it in one of the podcasts you guys did, and I kind of tend to agree with them that over the next 5 years, we're going to see a good bump in oil prices, and I'm excited. I'm optimistic.
I am too. I definitely am too. It's exactly what you say there. It's an industry that we all can love, and the people that kind of ride those highs and lows, and sometimes I completely am aware that people have to get away from the industry because they have to find something. But we just had a meeting, within the last few days, of where somebody said, well, isn't it so neat that we have this small big world of oil and gas where even if somebody goes to a different job, people that are incredibly talented, that when impact gets big enough, you would be pulling them in a second.
Yeah.
Just like we would be doing the exact same thing of, the people that are completely quality, and this is just such a cool place to be able to do that.
Yeah.
The next thing that I really want to get into, so the environmental impact solutions.
Yeah.
This is kind of, would you say that this was birthed because of the pandemic, or was this something that was always on your mind?
No,
okay.
Definitely the pandemic. We were kind of sitting around the office, thinking about how do we diversify from our exposure to oil and gas production, but still stay within the industry that we know and love.
Right.
I think people got to be careful every time, when they kind of start something new or an industry they're not as familiar with. I've done that before. I had a snow cone stand.
Nice.
Don't own a snow cone stand. Too much work. Too much work. But we're sitting there. How do we diversify ourselves, but still stay in this industry we're passionate about? And one of the things we kind of came up with through all these SPCC spill plans. You have to have spill plans for if you have this oil spill. But as an operator, if you have an oil spill, which you're just going to have oil spills. I mean, a cow's going to open a valve or a line's going to bust, but every time you have one, there's just a limited amount of groups that were capable of responding quickly and getting them cleaned up. And it's kind of like breaking your arm on a weekend. The only place you can go is the ER, right. and the medical companies know that, and you're going to pay for that. And that's kind of how the environmental companies are. They know there's just a handful of them, and they're going to charge you, an arm and a leg to get it cleaned up, and you have to get it cleaned up. And so we were thinking, how do we offer a service that is kind of operator friendly, that can provide us kind of an outlet. No matter what the oil prices are, if you have a spill, you have to get it cleaned up.
Right.
You can delay them some, but you still have to get them cleaned up. And so we were kind of looking at different businesses, but ultimately decided on this environmental company. And our VP of operations, a guy named Matt Milo, has been in the industry for like 12 years. I mean, just started at the bottom and ended up being kind of a VP at the previous company before they shut down, not because they weren't profitable, just investors and different things.
Makes sense.
And so we had known his family a long time, and he had been without a job for about a year. And so Matt, why don't you come in the office? And we hadn't really decided if we were going to do it or not. But after we had that conversation with Matt, just with his expertise and his passion for what he does, I thought, we got to do this. Like right now, the bad thing and the good thing about a downturn is there's a lot of good people that need jobs.
Yeah.
And and being able to hire him, I mean, it's just it's a blessing in of itself, because I really think he's going to take this business and expand it. And so it was a result of the downturn, and seeing a need out there that really a lot of companies, there's just not a lot of options. And right. So Matt's doing that, and we're excited about it. We've got a lot of MSAs in place with some of the big operators in Oklahoma.
That's great.
We just got some of our, we got a skid steer, so we have our heavy equipment and remediation trailers, and have been doing, staying busy. We can do power washing too. We've been power washing some stuff and getting awesome. Some jobs, and then we're kind of we've partnered up with this group called One Tree Planted. And so for each job that we do, we'll plant trees. Like you donate and they plant trees. And when I emailed them about it, they thought, oil and gas, like partnering with an environmental company.
No, you don't hear that. I mean, honestly, you don't hear
that.
They
had never heard of that. And I think it speaks to what Robert's passionate about, is about getting the word out in our industry.
Right.
And so once we're talking to them, we're like, guys, we're in the oil and gas business, but we clean up spills. Like, we're all about the environment. And I said, look at Haiti. They don't have oil and gas, and look what they've done to their forest. They've devastated the forest. It's like, whoa, I never thought about that. So anyway, it's kind of cool, this collaboration that we have going with them, but the fact that we're able to partner up with a lot of the big operators here and clean up oil spills is pretty cool. I've been out. There's a photo of me just drenched in oil from one location, and I'll send it to you later.
That's a good background. But that's a good screensaver.
Yeah, it's fun to get out in the field and see a different aspect to the industry.
For sure. I
spend a lot of time in the office, but be able to get out there and work that side of things has been quite fun.
So is it whenever there's a spill, like whenever you're working with the environmental side, clean up the spill, and then like I always knew the only like yardstick that I ever have to measure off of is we have land in a few places in Oklahoma where we've got wells that have been drilled, smaller companies, and smaller companies that really, I don't want to say fly by night and not throw any company under the bus, but if they had any sort of spill, or if they had any, that they were going to come in, abandon it, and then clean it up, it was not done in the same way that maybe a Chesapeake would do it, or a Continental would do it. Yeah. And I always liked, I remember the friends that I had at Chesapeake that would go in, and the pictures that they would send of going back in, plugging and abandoning, and the way that they really took care of that land and got it back into good shape for a landowner, that made me really feel good, because like my dad kind of has transitioned from teacher to like farmer now, and how much he values the land that he's on, and I totally would believe that whenever someone comes in and they see that you guys have gone kind of the extra mile, planted trees and everything, that's a goodwill effort if I've ever seen one. So that's pretty awesome.
Same thing. Family comes from, they're ranchers and farmers, and so we're trying to, it's environmental impact solutions, leaving it better for the next generation. And a lot of companies, they just don't know. I mean, we can get in there, clean it up. We write a report, so it's good to have that third party report, in your back pocket, and just getting in there when a lot of companies maybe don't like you said, a smaller company that doesn't quite know, they've never experienced a spill, and so we can be that outlet for both large and small.
That's really good.
We're pretty excited to see.
So will this be in complement to regular Impact Energy Partners, or is this its own separate?
It's a separate company. Obviously, some of the back office work, our operating companies handle the accounting, but the goal is for that to be a standalone company, to kind of run itself, and the reason for the separate name and all that stuff. So
I really like that. Well, I think kind of as we draw this to a close, the biggest thing that I take out of this is whenever, like Grant says, that the Impact name and leaving a positive impact. I think that's something that everyone should aspire for, and we should all try to leave a better mark for the people that come after us in this industry. And so I really like that you guys are doing that. Can you give us kind of, I know Mickey's been a great influence on you your whole life. Was there any other person that has helped kind of spur this mindset that you have of, I love the industry, I want to get back, I want to leave this positive, look, I mean, you're obviously passionate about it. Who are some of the other people that have kind of made Grant who he is?
Definitely Aubrey McClendon. I mean, the guy, he's kind of like the Elon Musk of our industry, and he wasn't afraid to promote the industry. He was a land guy at heart, which I am, and he wasn't afraid to, he made the Oklahoma City more beautiful because of it, and so definitely him. And then Dad's been a big influence. Just seeing.
I always like Mickey. Always like Mickey. He's so fun to talk to.
He stays low key, but he also tries to help young engineers and stuff like that. So it's been cool to see from Aubrey McClendon, who's kind of larger than life type of guy, versus my dad, who tries to stay low key, but has made big strides in the industry. And so it's been cool to see both of that. But we love what we're doing. I mean, I love what I'm doing, and obviously you guys at Lane Vantage have been a key to that success. The Lane Vantage software within our company, with being smaller, has really helped keep our records organized, and we can move quicker. When investors need stuff, we can get data to them. And so,
would you say that that's something, and where we talked about of efficiency being such a big part of after a pandemic era, or after people are reshuffling the structure of their departments or anything, can you see things like the technology of like a Land Vantage or like other software being something that companies leverage on very strongly to make sure that they're positioned correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we use Inveris or Drilling Info, for production data and look at projects, and then we get all these well files, and the old school way is you just stick them in a folder or filing cabinet, and then you never know what you own.
Right.
But being able to know when Mickey or an investor says, "Hey, how many acres do we have here? What's this?" Click of the button, and it's like it's there. So obviously we're always about providing more jobs, but utilizing technology, which you guys are creating jobs too. Using the collaboration between both Lane Vantage and Impact has been a lot key to our success.
That's fantastic. That's what we like to hear, and we want to make sure that we always provide you and other operating companies or mineral buying companies. We want to provide them with the tools that can say, hey, it's not just it's not just the same software that people are kind of recycling year after year. We have to make sure that we're up there on that same level of innovation, of getting to a 2018 level, 2019, a 2021 level, and anticipating what's kind of in the years to come to make sure that you guys can remain successful by putting your faith in us. So we really do appreciate that connection that we have, and with all of the clients that we have with Land Vantage. But that definitely is a big deal that I think many companies are going to be focusing on now and in the future, of being able to say, how can we do more with less? How can we do more with through technology and leverage? Give our people power.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we look at deals where small operators are very unorganized. We discount that, but when companies have good data, that's a premium, and so it really does pay off in the end.
I read an article that was talking about data is kind of the It's like the base level. It's like a very granular level. Yeah. And then you have information, and then you have knowledge. And by having your data, all this granular data, by being able to organize that, you're turning that into information. Yeah. And by being able to take that information and being able to get that to all of your employees, whether it be 2 employees or whether it be 50 employees or 100 employees, that turns into knowledge. And that's a knowledge share that you're able to say, hey, we're all on the same page. We're all pulling information from the same system of truth. And we're able to make deals faster. We're able to, make reports quicker. We're able to communicate between, like you and I could communicate back and forth just through the program. And we're able to make those decisions that are kind of the key day-to-day, that where time's of the essence. Yeah. So there's a lot of things in there, and that's what makes kind of our job so exciting, and being able to ping ideas off you and like ping ideas off other people that are in those operator roles and say, what are the things that you need that are going to help you in the future? That's what makes it, where you say making work fun and making the industry fun. That's what makes it really fun for us, for sure. Well, Grant, to conclude, you guys have done so much in the time that I've known you for Impact and the time that I knew you for Chesapeake, but you guys have definitely made this successful. You're definitely looking toward the future to make it even more successful. If someone watching this out there wants to get in contact with you, or if they want to find out more information about either Impact or the environmental impact, what's the best way to do that?
Email's great. It's grant.raney@impactenergy.us.
Barrett will put that here.
Typically, I put it right here. I typically respond with same day. If I didn't get it, of course, you can always give me a call or hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm kind of like you. LinkedIn's kind of my primary source now. Twitter and Facebook, I have them, but just...
We've got it too, and we put out stuff, and like I can't even plug it here. If you follow us on Twitter or Instagram or sorry for no updates, but we put all of our stuff into LinkedIn, and we're trying to do these videos to kind of keep out there. But look up Grant on LinkedIn. Like, he's a great person to follow. He puts out great comments, good commentary, and good posts. Check out Impact Energy, and for any questions, get a hold of Grant, and you won't be sorry, for sure. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
For sure. And for another episode of Listen Up, I'm Drew Hopkins. Thanks for watching.